What's up, bro? It's your boy, Mike Muse. I'm so excited to be in conversation with my next guest. I cannot wait to get her into studio next time where we have the proper lighting, the proper fixings, because she deserves it all. She is an incredible human being. I've had the chance to first meet her in different spaces. We have a great mutual friend in common. And when I first met her, I knew she was great. She was so kind and decent. And then I had the opportunity to constantly be on the same social schedule with her at the White House during the Obama years. And we just hit it off. And I have so much respect for her and what she has done. She is a mother, she is a wife, she is a lawyer by trade. She's a director, she's a writer, and she sold over 1 million books. This woman is bad. Her name is Tonya Lewis Lee. What's happening, Tonya?
How you doing, Mike? It's so good to be here and to be in conversation with you. Those were some good years back, those Obama days.
Man, we had some fun. And audience, I tell you, we had some fun. We were always, and this is what happened, we were always standing in line together to go through security to get into the White House. And that actually had time for us to bond, right? And
exactly.
over time.
Really talk.
Yeah, and to really talk. And I got a chance to get to know her. And I just wanted to say thank you, Tonya, just for one, being decent and kind. We live in a world with those of us with media entertainment, we're not always kind and decent to each other. And so thank you for being so kind. Even on the red carpet at the Oscars. I mean, just always decent. But listen, I'm so proud. You know how much I love She's Gotta Have It, the remake that you did for Netflix. But we're here to talk about another amazing project called Aftershock. And Ty, if you don't mind, I want to get just straight to it because I just think that it's so important, the work that you're doing. And this documentary is regarding Black maternal mortality. It is an issue that is facing our nation in a very dire straits. And Tonya, what you're doing for this project is you're bringing light in the urgency of now to the scenario. You being a mother of two, right? Tonya,
yes,
two. A mother of two.
Now.
Yeah, sidebar, I had the chance to be with your daughter on a press junket for Just Mercy. I don't know if she told you, but yeah,
I love that.
I cannot help but keep intersecting with you and your family.
Exactly. We're out in the world doing things.
Yeah, she's incredible. So as a mother of two, like, why was it important for you to take up this cause?
Yeah, well, I think it's really critical that we talk about women's health. To me, women's health is everything. It's the beginning of our community. If a woman is not well, her child is not well, her home is not well, her community isn't well. So, and when we look at the numbers, the United States has the highest mortality rates of any industrialized nation, and Black women are dying at 3 to 4 times the rate of white women. 60% of those deaths are preventable. So I think we really need to have this conversation about what's happening. I think the first way to fix a problem is to acknowledge that there is a problem. Let's all hands on deck have a conversation about it, and then let's get to the work of solving it.
Now, I gotta be honest, I didn't really know about this until the presidential debates. And then through that, that's when I started hearing about this term, like the Black maternal mortality rates. And I just wasn't aware of that. I think that's in part is why you actually are doing this documentary, because there's this narrative out there, like, believe Black women, listen to Black women, particularly when it comes to medical issues. And not only are they not being heard, in the hospital system, but then also too not even being heard that this is even a sense of an issue.
I really appreciate it. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I really appreciate you saying that about the narrative, because I think for some years when people talked about Black women dying from childbirth complications, there was a narrative that, well, it's her fault. It's her fault. She's poor. She's obese. She doesn't get any care. She doesn't care about her body. And now what's happening, though, is I'm hearing from healthcare providers and systems that they understand, actually, it's not her fault. She's not being seen and heard. She's telling you, I don't feel right, I don't feel well, and you're not listening. And so at least now it feels like the system is beginning to understand, or some in the system are beginning to understand there is a problem. And now we've got to get to how do we solve it?
Tonya, most people automatically would go to default to think that this is a poor person issue, right? But I think about, and you guys kind of highlight this a little bit with an Aftershock, but then the narrative out there of this happened to Serena Williams. Thankfully, she didn't pass away or have a moment, but she wasn't even believed. Can you talk to a little bit about how this transcends class?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because it does go across socioeconomic lines. A Black woman with a master's degree has a higher chance of dying from childbirth complications than a white woman with barely a high school education. So it's really clear by the statistics that this is an issue of race. It is not a class issue, it is a race issue. All of us Black women are in the same boat together, no matter who you are. It's like when you really look at it and you think about it, it's about people not listening to Black women when we show up. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you're wearing, doesn't matter if you got diamonds in your ears or not. No one's paying attention.
And I want to be clear, it doesn't, doing this type of work, advocacy space, as a journalist, always having to report on really tough issues. A lot of times I remove my emotion out of it, right? You never want the emotion to be part of the story, because the moment you allow your emotion to be part of the story, that's when you lose the narrative of what you're trying to say, because it becomes about your feelings. And so I'm not proud of this fact, Tonya, but I have become hardened to issues, right? And so when I see, unfortunately, Black men and women being murdered at the hands of police on Twitter, I don't have that reaction that some of my friends and family members may have, right? But my therapist says it comes out in other versions. Like when I'm sitting at home watching commercial, I tell her, all of a sudden I start crying, right? And she's saying that's your suppressed emotions that you stored, right? That's being released from your subconscious, right? And so it takes a lot to pierce me. But when I was reading up and preparing for this interview on Aftershock, I gotta say these stories of Shimoni Gibson and Amber Rose Isaac really got to me, and really got to me about, we all know about this idea of patient advocacy and how important it is to have patient advocacy within the hospital. But then to hear you now just talk about how a Black woman with a master's has a higher chance of dying giving birth than a poor white woman without a high school diploma. And then also knowing that these two women had partners who were there with them along on the journey. So in spite of having a partner, in spite of it being pushing through social economics, like there is no other statistics or data you can point to except for just race and not listening to Black women. So you guys neutralize all those arguments, and my heart sank in preparation for this.
Yeah, I have to say, Shimoni Gibson, Amber Rose Isaac, obviously I didn't know them personally. I feel like I've gotten to know them through their partners and their families. They were beautiful women who were trying to do great things in this world for our communities. And, I really do appreciate you, mentioning their partners, because, I think that people think of maternal health as a woman's issue, right? But it's a family's issue. It's a community's issue. Still takes two to make a baby, I say. And, Amari and Bruce loved these women. And when they passed away, they became activated to try to make change so that their community doesn't have to experience, what they had to experience. And it is devastating to lose these women. They are not here to raise their children. Their partners and their family are picking up the pieces. But again, their legacy, I keep coming back to this because it is heavy and hard, but I am inspired by how Bruce and Amari have really gone out there and tried to do work for the community and also for other men. I mean, it's beautiful to see how Amari and Bruce, when another man loses his partner to childbirth complications, they reach out to that man. They let them know, we're here for you. I have support. I'm here to support you. I know what you're feeling like more than anybody else out here, and we've got you. And they're able to be vulnerable with each other. I mean, that's really inspiring to me to be able to see, and hopefully other men will see that and be able to, hold on to it.
The silver lining to this unfortunate narrative, and I'm not going to lean in this too much, I want to go back to Black women, is that what you're doing unconsciously or indirectly is bringing into the forefront through media that Black men are fathers and that Black men are present. I had a really great conversation with Amon Shumpert, who you should connect with if you haven't already, about this idea about the lack of Black fathers in narrative and in media, and the way the media portrays us as if we're not present in the homes, right? Mm-hmm. And what Amon said is that, me and my basketball colleagues, which you don't know, we're fighting to see our kids in spite of the drama that we have with the partners that we chose to have our children with. And so I'm really glad that these two men have been brought into the scenario just to show that they're there. So indirectly, I just want to say thank you for bringing the male partners into this space to show that Black men are there and that we are in the house, that we are fighting for that. One story that really, I think the part that resonated with me was when one of the young ladies, and forgive me, I'm getting confused on which one, but she knew her doctor should have told her about the blood issue that she was having.
Amber.
Amber.
It was HELLP syndrome. Mm-hmm.
HELLP syndrome. And so that if they would have caught it, it would have been recognized. It would have been a high risk pregnancy, right? And so Tonya, like in talking with the doctors that you guys interviewed throughout this, documentary, which is well documented, how do we address that? Like, how do we get it to where those who even have doctors, right? Like who go get regular checkups during their prenatal care, do we need to ask the right questions? Like, what do you think some of a solution, I guess, could be, if there even is one, given that it's just systematic and systemic racism?
Yeah, I mean, and I think your question is important because it is, what do we do in the here and now, right? Because I do think the issue is that the medical institutions, medical schools, and the hospitals that have the residents, I think there needs to be an education done on that end. I don't know how you teach empathy really, but there needs to be some sort of reckoning with these institutions that are teaching doctors that brings in, I know people don't want to deal with critical race theory, but we need people to understand the truth of our history, who we are, how we got here, so that when they do interface with Black people, they don't have, people say implicit bias. I say it's often explicit. So we're working on that, and there's accountability for their biases. But for us in our communities, I would say that, we need to be consumers in a way, and we need to find the right support. And so if a doctor, and that's what Bruce did in the film, he says that, he saw that the doctor was not being responsive in a way that was right. He felt something was wrong. So he reached out, he found a midwife, and it was the midwife actually who saw the records and said, hold on a second, there's something wrong with her platelet levels. You need to go to the hospital now. She had been seen by doctors all along. It was the midwife who said, hold on, something's not right here. So he's a really great example of, unfortunately, it did not work out for Amber, but when something doesn't feel right, move on to somebody else. We follow a woman named Felicia Ellis who has a birth in a birthing center in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the film. And at 35 weeks pregnant, she decides, I don't know that I want to have this hospital doctor birth. I think I should go look for something else. And she goes and finds a birthing center and some midwives and gets the support she wants and needs for her birth, and has an amazing birth.
Hi, two things came to mind, right? One is a solution, if you guys haven't thought about it already, just kind of shooting off the hip here, is that, these college and university, they have these incredible public health degrees, right? I just think that there should be some interdisciplinary action between the public health college or the School of Public Health and also to like the School of Medicine, right? To at least do one overlapping interdisciplinary courses in order to kind of address that. The second thing I wanted to talk with you about, in particular you now being, if you can throw your attorney hat on just for a quick sec, is that I talk a lot about the validation sometimes that Black people need to feel from authoritative figures. And that a lot of times Black people, there's something about in our culture that I'm not saying it's categorically true, right? But there is a part of our culture that just defaults that the teacher is right, the principal is right, the judge is right, the lawyer is right, right? The doctor is right. So we often never challenge authority. Now, I'm sure that's systematic and and all those things, but do you think there's something to that when it comes to Black people and the medical system, and that we we feel like we can't challenge the authority of like what these doctors and nurses have.
Well, yeah, and I think it can be very intimidating, right? I mean, you figure the doctor, they went through all this schooling and they're the expert and they know best. I mean, you know, why wouldn't we think they know best? You know, we are going to the expert to tell us about what's going on with us. And I think that's a very sort of logical and human thing to do, to trust the expert. But at the same time, I think that we as the people also have to understand our power and not turn our power over, and start thinking about what are the questions that I need to be asking. This is really more of a partnership situation when I deal with a doctor. It's not the doctor on high telling me about my body, it's my body. I know my body better than my doctor. So let's have a partnership here. You know, it should look like this, but you feel like this. You know, how are we working together to get to the right solution for myself? And really, I hope the film helps people understand that you should be empowered in your process of dealing with. And look, again, it is very intimidating. It is very difficult sometimes when you are talked down to, dismissed, not heard. It's not an easy thing always to do, but we have more power, I think, sometimes than we realize.
Yeah, I just want to bring into the conversation for the audience that are listening to know that, you know, sometimes, you know, to give us permission, that we have the permission to ask the questions. And I love how you phrase that. This is a partnership. You know, I've never even looked at it, you know, and here I am asking 1,000 questions of my doctor all the time, but I never view that as a partnership, right? And I think that if we can change that narrative that it's a partnership, we'll be more comfortable in asking questions, as you said, about our bodies, right? And in particular, for those of us who associate with Black women, date Black women, marry Black women, love Black women, have Black women in our friend circle at a minimum, to make sure that and to encourage these Black women to make sure they view this as a partnership, because I feel like it's a village, right? And we all need allyship, whatever that term is now, right? In
For
order to feel comfortable to push back on like these experts. It's not easy. David and Goliath. It just isn't.
And we're consumers. If this one doesn't work for you, then we have to go find the one that does. And that's why I have a friend of mine, a woman named Kimberly Seals Allers, who has an app called the Earth app. It's Earth without the B. And what it is you can rate your hospital or doctor experience for maternal health. And it's a database, so that if you as a Black woman are looking to go to a particular hospital, you can look up on her app what other women, Black women's experience was in that hospital and whether it's really right for you. That's the kind of thing that we really need to be doing more of.
That's so good. That's really like the Uber model, the rating model for Uber, or like a Yelp model, right?
Exactly.
Let's use Yelp, right? Like when a restaurant gets a bad review, when a restaurant gets a review, you never really see them comment on the good review. It's the bad review that they comment on. So sorry you had this experience. Can we give you $1,000 off your next 10 meals? You know what I mean? Like they really try to overcompensate. So I love the rating system. There's something about rating system that holds people accountable because they can no longer hide in the shadows of that system. So I think that's a brilliant, I'm glad you brought that into this conversation. And also too, I'm glad, because I always talk up audience, I never pretend to be any expert in anything, and you guys know this. And so I love that I'm learning throughout this conversation, too, as well. Yeah, because, Tonya, I always advocate like for mental health. And I'm always talking about like, therapists. And I, sometimes some of us have had a bad experience with one and then we're over for the rest of our lives. And I say, you have to shop around. I said, therapy is like dating, right? Finding a therapist is like dating. It's okay if you don't like this one, you had a bad session, go find another one. But I never think about that when it comes to like doctors and our physicians.
Absolutely.
Right?
And look, it's like anything. There's some good ones out there and they're not such good ones out there. It's you got to find the one that's really good and that really works for you.
Yeah, and in closing, because I can keep you all day. I can't wait to do another conversation with you already. I'm already excited with better lighting, audience.
You look fantastic.
Out, like I need some bad lighting. So, but I still wanted Tonya to be on video because she looks amazing. It's important that people see her and not me.
Well,
but in closing, in terms of what I started the conversation off by talking about politics, and I got Can you talk a little about what that legislation is and where we are with that, and where do you see that going from a policy perspective?
And I want to say again, and you mentioned Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, I believe it was our sister Kamala Harris when she was running for president, who really began to bring that conversation about maternal health into the whole forefront. So it's really important that our Black women be at the table, because it's Black women who are bringing this issue forward. And yes, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood brought the Momnibus bills to Congress, which is a collection of bills that are designed to help reduce the rates of maternal mortality in this country. They're moving through Congress now. A lot of them are bipartisan. I'm not sure where they all are right now, but there are some, for example, that keep women on Medicaid through the first year of postpartum, because most of these deaths happen postpartum, and women are kicked off of their insurance, and they need to have insurance and coverage long term. So there are bills like that. They are there trying to make sure that doulas, midwives get covered by insurance, because a lot of times too, if you want a doula or a midwife, it is not covered. You have to go out of pocket for those kinds of things. And by the way, the midwives and doulas, they are proven to have better birth outcomes if women have that kind of support. So women need to have access to that. And so I'm just grateful to, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, Ayanna Pressley has been active, Cory Booker has been a great voice on that. And so, I'll just end with this. I think voting really matters. When it comes down to all of these issues, we need to make sure we've got great politicians who are running for office. We need to support them because the laws of the land affect our health and our wellness. So, I just want to encourage everybody, don't give up on voting. I know sometimes it can feel hopeless, but our voice matters.
Tonya Lewis-Lee, I couldn't think of a better place to leave it there. But this has been an incredible conversation. I have learned, and I know my audience has learned too as well. Thank you for being a voice. Thank you for bringing this to the attention with your co-producers and directors and the partners of our loved ones who have been passed away.
Thank you, and I hope everyone tunes into Hulu to check out Aftershock.
Yeah, it's streaming now, so make sure you check it out. Audience, here right there, will be right back.